Good evening. I'd like to call to order this special board meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education 116 on September 23rd, 2024 at 7:07 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mr. DeVera?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
All right. And Dr. Mendoza.
Yeah, just want to, Dr. Bailey, if you'd come up, you're going to be doing the presentation anyway. I just want to introduce our interim business manager, Dr. Joseph Bailey. He's been with us for a few weeks now. I'm not going to read you his whole resume, but 40 years in education, spent significant time as both a business manager and superintendent, and I believe the last few years he's been working with multiple districts. So this is the new guy. So, and essentially he knows, and he's known we're very fiscally healthy, and essentially I've asked Dr. Bailey to keep the lights on for us. And he's doing a good job. So I'm going to defer to him for the budget presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you, everyone. Very nice to meet you. Appreciate all the support I've gotten from Don, Heather, and our board finance committee, Kevin and Annette. We've put together what I think is a very good budget for this fiscal year. And I would like to present it now to you for your approval. This is the deficit budget summary. And this is, these are our fund balances at the time as of this school year. Just as a note, my copy has deficit spelled correctly. Don't want to point that out, but it's too late, right? Anyway, so the budget process is a very, it's a budget process that starts basically in November of the year prior. Education, public education, as many of you know, is really an annual process. A lot of the things that we do are annualized, and we do the same things at the same time every year. The budget process, as I've observed with Dr. Mendoza, as I've performed over the years, really starts in November with the district looking at staff for the following year, staffing and programs. This budget, I'm sure, has been no different, and it culminates through many different variations with tonight's presentation. This next page I want to show you is from the state budget form, and it basically indicates that all the requirements of the state budget form have been met, so it gives assurance to the public and to the Board of Education and to the administration that we have a solid budget, and this is an automatic process that is matriculated through the actual form. I think that's important to point out. So as I was saying, the budget process begins in the prior year. And it has, it's a very, to get to a point of adoption, it's a very specified process. This board and this administration has met this process and the legal requirements of this process. As was approved in August was the tentative budget. It has to be 30 days prior to the actual adoption of the budget, and in this case it certainly is, and there has to be legal notice given, and that legal notice was put in the Tribune in a timely fashion. And here's the proof of that, and we're required to submit all this information to the both the ROE and the state. The fiscal year budget process continued. Final budget must be approved by the Board of Education by September 30th and then submitted to the ROE and to the state. Final budget must also include all changes and all corrections for that year from the time that the tentative budget is approved in August. As we look at our revenues for this school year, 31% local property tax collection. We have revenue from student fees. We have evidence-based funding. And the increase from last year is $2,477,344. We receive state and federal grants. We also have received good interest based on, of course, the interest rates set by the feds on our bonds and investments. And then we get substantial amount from rebates from our P cards and from some other programs that we're involved in. Our fiscal year 25 evidence-based funding. We continue to be a Tier 1 district. However, as Dr. Mendoza pointed out to me, I think the first time we met, we were very close to becoming Tier 2. And in fact, I believe at 75%, we will become Tier 2. However, for this year, we're Tier 1. And our total EBF contribution from the state is $80,026,759.
Just want to point one thing out. Right now, we're, I think, 76% adequacy. The number right now is 78 for Tier 2. That adequacy percentage could actually drop from year to year. Just so everybody's clear, you can hit close to the cutoff in 1 year, and then based on a variety of factors, student enrollment, the way the money's distributed, based on like 35 different factors, it's possible we could drop. Or maybe we have a slight increase, but other districts go up much faster than we do. So I just want to point that out, that it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to jump into Tier 2 immediately.
Would that change the base on the EBF, or would it just change the difference in the increment from year to year?
Yeah, so the base funding minimum is the base funding minimum, so we're not going to get less than that. So no, you're correct. The number stays the same, but as a percentage, the goal by the state is to get everybody to 90% of their adequacy level, and we're not. So we're not going to get less money, but there is a pretty big drop off once you hit Tier 2. So we just need to be mindful of that. One of our local school districts, Grant High School District, has gone from Tier 2 to Tier 1 to Tier 2 to Tier 1 multiple times. So just making you aware.
Thank you. And that figure is 78%. Thanks for correcting me. Our expenditures are, education, public education is primarily a people business. As we heard in the finance meeting tonight, much of our conversation involved people and positions and the costs associated with that, including salary and benefits. Our budget for this upcoming year is no different. And we're probably somewhere around 75 to 80% budgeted for personnel, perhaps even higher. The staff insurance costs are included. We also, this year, one of the things that we've done is we're going to be transferring from Fund 10 to Fund 20, which is by law, and then to Fund 60, which is our capital improvement fund for potential property acquisition and building improvements. Our fiscal year operating funds are listed here. You can see that these are our operating funds. These are the 4 funds that we actually are or the state actually considers to be our operating funds. And you can see that we actually have about $3 million differential to the good relative to our expenditures versus our revenue. It's a conservative budget. That number may be higher depending on how the school year goes, our investments go, other types of things. But the most expensive cost that you're going to experience will be any costs associated with your personnel, period. A summary of the FY25 budget. Your expenditures do not exceed our revenues, and that's a really important thing. When they do, as many of you know, you have to produce a plan to get yourself out of deficit. This is a very well-managed district. I can say that from experience. I think the board and the administration are doing a great job relative to guiding the district. It's very healthy and continues to gain in health. We're still at Tier 1 status. As we discussed throughout the evening prior to this meeting, in our finance meeting, the board takes very seriously its role relative to staffing, understanding that staffing is such a primary source of our expenditures. In this budget, we will continue to maintain our financial prudence. We'll adhere to the Round Lake School District Board of Education policies for sure. The assumptions that Dr. Mendoza has put together are very helpful, have been very helpful to me personally, and I appreciate them. And it's also a sign of a healthy district financially. So this year we are recommending the budget as presented. It's a balanced fiscal budget for 2025. There are threats, however, as with anything in life, especially in a school district budget. Nobody saw 2020, March of 2020 coming. Huge hit from really a clip, I think, using a football reference. But the boards had to respond, administration had to respond. In this case, this board has obviously responded in great shape, as it's been 3 years now, 4 years, and we continue to improve. Unfunded mandates, we're never sure what the state's going to do relative to passing new legislation. These can be anything from a very small thing, where we have to spend money on another person to do some task, especially in a large district like this, to a big thing that will involve either losing revenue or greater expenditures. Another threat is when we cannot fill positions, but we're mandated by law to have them. If we cannot fill them, we have to have them. And a threat, of course, is what the agencies, the outside agencies, charge us relative to tuition and other costs. Property tax collection is, I think, almost everywhere a problem. Not a problem, but certainly a challenge. And this district is no different, and we have to continue to watch that. Also, the PTAB, this is the property tax appeal process. Fortunately, now we're able to know who's appealing the property taxes. In years past, superintendents and boards were surprised by it when it finally matriculated through and cost us revenue. Our response to student and staff needs, for the 24-25 school year, as was discussed in the finance meeting. That's always going to be a challenge. What relative to enrollments in certain programs, enrollments generally. There hasn't been a year in my 40 years I haven't been surprised at one grade level or another, or in one program or another. And it just happens, and we have to flex when it does happen, and obviously this board is flexed. Of course, we have our instructional needs for K-12. We have unanticipated staffing changes. We have partner school unanticipated needs that require us to pay greater tuition or in some other way assist them. I think this is my favorite slide of all, is the next one. Most of us in education are aware of Round Lake's difficulties at years past, many years past. It's obvious based on this 5-year analysis of what your recognition is, that it continues to improve. This year it is stable at 3.7. I don't know if I've ever seen a 4.0. I've seen one 3.8. This is a very good score, and I think everybody in this room should feel very proud of themselves for the management of this budget and the continuing management of the budget. In conclusion, I will take any questions you have, and pending no questions, administration recommends the approval of the budget as presented.
That will happen at the regular meeting. But just to add to Dr. Bailey, as he mentioned, this was reviewed at finance earlier today. As you can see, a balanced budget. Again, our financial profile score, we maintain that 3.70. But as you heard Dr. Bailey mention, it's those unanticipated things that always come with every year. As we've changed to a partner school model, we see some greater needs with staffing that we'll talk about as we go through the regular agenda. But as you mentioned, we should be proud of the work and the budget that we present here today.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you, Dr. Bailey. And as always,
Thank you.
Members of the public may participate in public comment during board meetings by attending in person or by submitting electronic public comment forms. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting, and a public commenter will be contacted to confirm identity. We did not have any electronic public comment. Do we have any local public comment for our special hearing? Hearing none, I will adjourn this special meeting at 7:25 p.m. and we will get started here for our regular meeting in just a second. And there it is. All right, and I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education on September 23rd, 2024 at 7:25 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
All right, and first up is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, if I can get a motion to approve the meeting agenda as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. We have an approved agenda, and first up on that are the special recognition and presentations, which are our September Athletes of the Month. I believe that is Mr. Karazak.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here presenting our September Athletes of the Month. Both are familiar faces, as they're both past winners. In football, we've got William Cole, and in girls flag football, Leah Glover. We'll start with Will, here to recognize our male September Athlete of the Month in football is head football coach Matt Milazzo, recognizing William Cole.
Oh, press and hold. All right. Sorry, not Will's first time, but my first time here. It's a great pleasure to be able to nominate Will for this award for this month, and for him to receive it as a student. He's an outstanding individual in the school building. He's someone who you're going to see in a variety of different areas in terms of choir, honor roll, student council. But for the Athlete of the Month as a football player, Will was not only named a captain this year, but he after week 2 was named the Tribune Player of the Week for Lake County. Part of that happened to be 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss in that game just in of itself. For those that aren't as familiar with football, 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss for a lot of good high school football players could be a season or a career. And Will accomplished that in one game in which he was double or triple teamed, and the other coaches on the other sideline were yelling out to block his number consistently. So Will's just an outstanding kid. His growth as a leader this year has been the best part of what I've seen outside of his growth as a football player, and his best days are definitely still ahead of him.
All right. Next up, to recognize our female September Athlete of the Month, Leah Glover, will be head girls flag football coach Molly Hennig.
Leah and I stood up here last year for the same award, but this year I think it's a little bit more special. She's really put together quite a senior season, helping us to a 13-4 record right now. Last week she was named the Bears Player of the Week, which for those of you that aren't familiar, there's one winner for the whole state of Illinois per week for girls, and then one for boys as well. So she was a representative for the whole state. During that week we went 5-0. She had 10 touchdowns, 11 flag pulls, and 4 interceptions. So she, just a quiet week for her. But overall, she's really stepped up as a leader this year. Mr. Carroll the other day was like, "Who are your captains?" Thinking we'd have a couple. And I go, "It's just Leah. It's just Leah." And he said, when you have someone like her, that just kind of makes sense. And she really speaks to that in practice. Today we were going through different routes, and she was like wanting to get out there every single time. So just like her enthusiasm for wanting to help the younger girls get better at the game and leaving the program in a good place after this year, she's really stepped up. She has 28 touchdowns on the whole season, which puts her right now, according to Max Preps, as tied for first in the state. as far as like how many people actually enter it. She has 34 flag pulls and 9 interceptions, and we still have at least 7, hopefully more games to go for her to keep adding on to that. And we really look forward to her going on. She's not sure where she's going to go yet, but we're hoping she's our first flag football player to go on and play in college. So that's really the goal for the end of the year, and we look forward to seeing everything she does.
All right, now we will transition to communications to the board, and first up on that is our school improvement process, 24-25. Take it away, Dr. Steffen.
All right, thank you very much for having us this evening. Myself and Casey Kurtz will be presenting this evening in regards to our school improvement process for this coming school year. We're really excited to be here. We have worked a lot. Casey's really taken the lead on this work and developed a new process for school improvement this year that we wanted to be able to share with you. And also we know that later on in the board agenda, you'll be approving our school improvement plans. So it just kind of made sense to talk about what you're going to see in those plans and also provide a connection to what the process looks like for this school year. So throughout our presentation this evening, you'll see on the agenda the items we're going to cover. We're going to talk about our past practices in school improvement and then our current direction to show kind of some of the changes we're making. We will review the process. We'll also talk about having a culture of continuous improvement, the different ISB requirements that we're required to follow based on our school designations. We'll dive in a little bit deeper then into the goal focus areas for each of the particular levels, and then we'll finalize going over what the data will be that we are utilizing through the process. So first and foremost here, when we're looking at the difference between our past practice and our current direction, there's 4 different areas that we wanted to highlight. The first one up there being we historically have always done 1-year plans. And we really felt like we needed to move to something that allowed us to dive deeper into true school improvement, which takes time. So we're moving from a 1-year plan to a 3-year plan. This move we're hoping allows us to provide for a little bit more sustainability, depth of impact, and strategic alignment. And really just meaningful school improvement really requires us to take time to address culture, especially when you think about our move to partner schools at the elementary level. We have 5 new buildings. When in the way we're looking at it, we want to attend to that, as well as just paying attention to our practices and our systems that we have in place and really taking time to improve those. So we felt going to a 3-year model would definitely help support that work. We also want to move from process goals to more SMART goals. We've heard Dr. Mendoza talk a lot about really paying attention to our numbers, to our achievement data, to our chronic absenteeism data, and paying attention to what everybody, our public sees, our community sees, what we all see when it on our school report card. So by moving to the SMART goal focus, it really allows us to connect specifically to those types of numbers, which you'll see on some of the upcoming slides in regards to where our goal focus areas are. The third area there is we historically were doing data, looking at data more from like a building specific level and monitoring at that level. And now we're trying to connect that school-wide data to district-wide data in our strategic plan and having a bigger picture look at things from the building level. And finally, the data presentations that we have done in the last couple of years with our principals have been exactly that. A data presentation once a month at a principal meeting. Here's some data, look at your map data. Here's some student attendance data, let's look at the data. And now what Casey has developed is looking a lot more at I would say like a modeling. It's actually really good teaching. And trying to model a good data conversation with principals. So they just held their last one last week. We had one today then with assistant principals where they were able to look at some data that Casey provided and then have some collective conversation around how they were going to bring that back to their SILT team and what the actual pieces were within that data, with the end goal then of the principal modeling that conversation with their school improvement leadership team, who then could model it in their PLCs. So to kind of have that chain of effect of looking at data and bringing it down all the way to every staff member in the building. So that kind of speaks to the 4 different areas of focus and the change from past practice to current practice. So Casey's going to jump in and go over the continuous improvement model that we have adopted for this year.
Okay, we looked at several models that we were interested in implementing within the district this year, and the model that we ended up choosing is called the Massachusetts Theory of Action. It's a continuous school improvement model designed to enhance student outcomes, which is a big focus for all of our schools. The model is based on a few core principles. The first is high expectations for student achievement. The next is data-driven decision-making. So if you look at the model, you'll see that it's an annual cycle that's done in a year. However, we'll be implementing this same cycle over the course of 3 years with the school improvement plans. The model requires that principals and school leadership teams self-assess their current ability, their current data, and then make a decision and determination to set the direction for the school from there out of that data. That's where the SMART goals are drafted from. As the schools are receiving data throughout the school year, they'll develop and revise based on what the data is telling them. They'll continue to implement and monitor and kind of circle back and forth through the school year, with the end of the school year being where they evaluate the success and make determinations for the following year of year 2 of the SIP plans. We are also focusing on collaborative practices. At secondary, we are working with Solution Tree to reboot our PLC process. And at elementary, again, and middle school, we are looking at the collaborative data working sessions with the principals, who can then take that down to their SILT teams and PLC. The model also talks about targeted support and resources. So if there isn't student learning happening, what are we doing to intervene through MTSS or intervention to support students? As well as there's accountability and monitoring the progress towards our goal. Having the 3-year goal of the school improvement plan, when a school receives designations from the state for targeted or comprehensive, we automatically enter a 4-year cycle of improvement. Last year was our planning year, so we are now in year 1 of implementation. Our school improvement plans will model the state's required 3-year implementation of the rest of the 4-year cycle. Last year was our planning year for our schools that were in targeted or comprehensive status, and we had a needs assessment conducted for our comprehensive schools by the American Institutes of Research. And out of the needs assessment for those schools, 4 key focus areas for school improvement came out of the assessments. So the first is focusing on leadership and vision. All of these focuses are embedded in our model this year and what we're trying to accomplish with principals. The first focus is that leadership and vision. So again, taking what we're doing from the strategic plan down to the building level, implementing it with principals, school leadership teams, and then into professional learning communities, our PLCs. Goals or focus area 2 and 3 is creating that culture of data review. So reviewing student learning and making adjustments when students are showing that they're learning or if they're having difficulties. And last, the school environment. We know that we need culture and climate in order to accomplish the first 3 focus areas. So creating an environment where the community is engaged, our staff are engaged, our students are engaged, all while building relationships will help support the continuous improvement model.
And this slide here provides just a review of the ISB requirements in regards to school improvement. As Casey mentioned, we are currently then in year 2, which is implementation year 1. It's a 4-year cycle with ISB. And we have 4 schools that are considered our comprehensive schools: Round Lake, Middle, McGee, Murphy, and Indian Hill. And then 2 schools that are targeted, Ellis and Beach. All of the schools were identified for their students with IEPs subgroup. Round Lake Middle was also identified for our language, limited English proficiency students, and then Indian Hill was also identified for our Black subgroup. So within the requirements and for ISB within that 4-year cycle, we are required to identify a learning partner. So at the secondary level, we are partnering with the Lake County Regional Office of Education and doing a focus on PLCs in partnership also with Solution Tree. At the elementary level, we are evaluating potential vendors, but as Dr. Apgar mentioned in our special education audit presented by the Catalyst for Educational Change, we are considering and planning to move forward with them upon approval of our ILM Power grant, which will happen after we submit our school improvement plans that are board approved. Our goals will be focusing on reading and are required to focus on reading and math. And then the action steps within our school improvement plans have to focus on our targeted subgroups that I noted. And then there's another piece of the school improvement required process now that we have comprehensive and targeted schools that requires us to hold a stakeholder advisory group. And that is something that Casey will be partnering with Ms. Bennett on to schedule and plan for within the school year. So the goal focus areas, Casey's going to go to in much more detail, but this slide provides you with an overview. Our early education center will be focusing on their curricular pieces and structures they have in place in regards to a program they use called Teaching Strategies Gold and also the pyramid model. We have asked all of the schools to focus on chronic absenteeism. As we know and we've seen, especially coming out of the pandemic, absenteeism, it's always been a concern, but is even more so now. So all schools will be focusing one goal in that particular area. Elementary and middle schools will be looking at reading and math performance as well, and the high school will be looking at academic performance through the ACT, which will be reading, math, and science. And then they'll also focus on failure rate as well, again, as chronic absenteeism. There will be standing agenda items on every building SILT agenda that will focus on community engagement and school improvement. As we noted, the change to partner schools, we definitely didn't want to lose sight of school environment being important. Of course, it's still important at our secondary schools as well, but we felt if that stayed on the SILT agendas and were regularly every month discussed, they could still be a priority within the school, but wouldn't need to be in the school improvement plan, and same with community engagement. Clearly that is a priority. It's in our strategic plan. It's super important. So the building still will be focusing in these areas, but they aren't specific goals called out within their school improvement plans. So this picture just represents what ultimately the goal is here in regards to school improvement, is that everyone is rowing in the same direction. We're looking at our school report card, we're looking at the strategic plan, and we're looking at our school improvement plans, and again, all trying our best to work towards improvement, all aligned and working together.
So these next few slides go into more in detail to kind of show how we've aligned the strategic plan with the state report card, with the school improvement plans. And I say that with the caveat of early childhood, who doesn't have an output on the state report card. So their focus areas are a little bit different than elementary, middle, and the high school. So early childhood, again, is focusing on teaching gold strategies, specifically the language domain. It's an ongoing formative assessment tool that looks at the whole child. In speaking with the building administration at our early childhood center, the language domain is an area of need, and this was an area they felt like they really wanted to address based on their data and student performance with language. Next is the pyramid model, which is their goal would be phase 6 of implementation at the end of 3 years. It's a multi-tiered framework based on promoting social, emotional, and behavioral development of young children. And in phase 6, it is being implemented with fidelity and without the need for as much monitoring. Lastly, chronic absenteeism. These are our youngest students in the district, and we would be collecting our attendance records through Infinite Campus data that we have readily accessible to us. And it, focusing on absenteeism at the early childhood building is where we're setting the tone for participation with our early learners. All right, so here's where we begin to see the state report card correlation to the school improvement plan. So the left column shows the data that is shared on the school report card. We have the IAR ELA proficiency, IAR math proficiency in grades 3 through 8, and also chronic absenteeism. On the state report card, that information is pulled from students that are in district, but also are out of district students. On the state report card, that information is provided from Pearson, which is the platform that students take the IAR assessment on. For the SIP plans, because the IAR data is only provided to us in the summer, it's not actionable. We don't have regular evaluation of that assessment. So iReady is our new benchmark assessment that students will be assessed on 3 times a year. Results are immediate, and our building administration and school improvement leadership teams can regularly assess that data and review it for improvement. Chronic absenteeism as well. We have internal Infinite Campus data that principals will be pulling to review to ensure that we're on track with attendance. Lastly, at the high school level, again, the left-hand side reflects what's reported out on the school report card for the high school. We will have ACT being changed over from SAT in the past. We will be looking at ELA proficiency, math proficiency, as well as science proficiency, 9th grade on track, and chronic absenteeism. Those are all reported out from the state. The state report card, it talks again in the middle about where that information comes from in-district and out-of-district placed students. And then data for the school improvement plan for the high school that's actionable is the EPAS, which is a ACT platform system that guides and supports student readiness from the pre-ACT to the ACT results. It gives strengths and weaknesses and a scale score, and it's been shown to increase college readiness and educational or career planning if students aren't planning to go to college, if they're taking the career route. Also for 9th grade on track, we'll be monitoring failure rates. And again, chronic absenteeism is the same with all the other levels. We'll be utilizing Infinite Campus data to monitor.
Just have a comment before. I want to thank the team. I think this is either my 12th or 13th year here. I can't remember. It's one of the two, but this is probably the most targeted, specific, measurable school improvement process we've had since I've been in the district. So I want to thank the team up in front, led by Casey, specific to school improvement, but also the other people that are part of the teaching and learning team on the side. What you are going to notice, and obviously you don't have to do it tonight, but you're definitely going to see redundancy between the school improvement plans and what's on our strategic plan. That's exactly how it should be. We've done that in the past. We just haven't been as targeted and intentional with our efforts, and I feel good about where we're headed. Couldn't ask for a better team to be leading this work. So, well, they'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the board?
So it has taken me no longer than half to understand competency-based education. And I'm like, no, this is what I know about, right? So how does competency-based education and this kind of overlay?
I'd argue very well. Our goal is always looking at where kids are at in skills and particular content. When we're looking at the ACT, one thing that I've talked a lot with Mr. Peterson and Mr. Dees at the high school about is looking for the right resources to support us in understanding the ACT. Because there are ACT pieces that will tell us this particular standard in English literacy comes up 7 times on the ACT test, 3 times on the ACT test. That's the kind of stuff we're trying to dive into when we are grading students at the indicator and standard level to level out and determine their proficiency. So to me, it just makes sense that we're trying to look at students' proficiency on an ACT on some type of assessment. Of course, we want to look at other things as well and not target everything on the test, but I feel like it definitely aligns. We do the same thing on IAR. We can pull IAR reports and look at what the specific skills are. Does our curriculum align to those skills? So there's a lot of correlation, I guess, between paying attention to what the ACT or IAR are asking, what skills they want us to know for our students, and then do we make sure we do that with our curriculum as well. Not sure I'm answering your question, but okay.
On the culture of continuous improvement, where it says focus one, leadership and vision. Leadership is shared responsibility for professional collaboration. I kind of go back, as you mentioned earlier, the audit we got from special ed, where there was that disconnect between administration and kind of like the people on the ground doing the everyday. How is this going to also help not just like our gen ed, but really across the district?
Yeah, I think we in the last year in teaching and learning have spent a lot of time, I think my team would agree, on trying everything we can do to be on the ground, which is can be really hard to do when we're looking at 10 different buildings. But two things come to mind right away. A couple of us, myself, Liz, Jess, and Casey are participating in the PLC training with the department chairs and the building administration this year. So we were just at CLC for 2 days last week, listening. We didn't do a whole lot of talking, but just listening. How are things going? What do the questions sound like, so that we're connected to where staff are at? And then when I think about it, the elementary level, with the adoption of the new curriculum, we've put in place a curriculum feedback form that the teachers have been asked to do every single week. And that's what my reading was this weekend. Not too exciting, but literally reading through exactly we did require teachers to share successes and also challenges. We asked specifically for feedback on the professional development. Is it what you need? What do you need if it isn't? And we asked specifically about what resources are you using in the curriculum, so we could get a gauge on, like, are they maybe missing out on something, or do we want to dive into a resource we see regularly used? Because there are a lot of things that came with the new curriculum, and we're all learning alongside the teachers. So those are two things that off the top of my head jump in to mind as far as what we're trying to do to stay that connected and be aware of what the staff experience is like.
Because we didn't do that before, did we?
We had with our curriculum before, we did have a curriculum feedback form where teachers could submit if they had a question about the curriculum or a concern about the curriculum or something they wanted to share for like improvements. But it wasn't necessarily like a in the moment, what PD do you need? It was just, it was a way for them to communicate, but this is way more of a every single week where I know for a fact, I can think of right now, Katie Wish, our math coordinator, has scheduled, I don't know how many, she said, like 11 different meetings around the elementary schools to go meet with PLCs because they put something in the form. So we weren't that targeted, and this time we're really trying to stay really connected. So we've done it. We've just sort of, I guess, upped the ante on like what we'll do with the feedback.
All right, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much. And next up, it looks like, turf tank purchase.
Good evening, everybody. So I want to bring some information to you related to the turf tank. What the turf tank is a GPS guided field marker. It uses like a robot basically to mark all our athletic fields. What excites me about this is it brings a number of cost savings to our district in both human resources and also on the materials used. It paints much more accurate field markings than what we currently have, and it's accurate up to 1 centimeter. In addition to that, we will use less paint and then be able to allocate our human resources more efficiently and work on other projects that may be floating out there. One nice thing about this as well is that we also determined that we can use this at our middle schools as well. So it's not just a high school based piece of equipment. We'll be able to mark our soccer fields at the middle schools that we use and also all our fields at the high school. So we are creating something that is one much higher quality product that we're putting out than currently, and also bring a savings to the district as well.
My first question, just to confirm, I know I've looked at it with other hats. This is the one that basically it'll be pre-programmed from the company to GPS to be able to map out the football practice fields, the soccer practice fields, the fields at Shagbark, the fields at McGee. If we needed to, God forbid, have to use Hart Main we could program it and have that program so that we're not paying the park district for our paint there as well. It's programmable to all of those different locations.
That's correct. It uses a 3-point GPS system where it communicates from the machine to a local GPS unit and satellites. Once the fields are programmed in at any location, it can paint that field in a fraction amount of time that we currently use by a manual process. It's pretty impressive to see and watch, and it actually, the markings are straighter, they're brighter, more vibrant, but also it cuts down on paint by about 50%.
Yeah, I'll just say from personal experience, I worked a regional soccer match for the for boys regional last year over in Rockford, and they literally ran the turf tank right before the game, so that it was painted right before the game, and then he drove right off the field. But it's an amazing little guy.
Yeah, a couple things that I didn't point out. It sounds super technical and very complex piece of machinery, but on the user end of it, very user friendly. We're excited to have that piece of it. The company, they come and service all of it. It's their tablet, so any type of technology, they can update that for us. There's a service center located in Crystal Lake. In the event that the machine goes down, we can take the machine to Crystal Lake and we can get a replacement there, so we never are down on an actual machine.
So this was also at Finance earlier today and reviewed with Mr. Peterson and even Mr. McDowell on Friday, who's not here. And, Mr. Peterson highlighted everything. Obviously, this will be quicker, more efficient, less materials being used. But as you said, those human resources put at other areas here at the high school. We covered, regarding the allowance of paint. They can customize the wrapping to the robot with, the high school logo, which go through the branding request. But this is something really good for not only for the high school, but for the district as a whole. So it can be utilized at the middle schools as they spoke to. We'll leave the iPad or Android with them.
Any additional questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, next up is a partnership with the Academy for Urban School Leadership. Mr. Shute.
Good evening. We have an MOU as part of your packet. We are looking to connect with the Academy for Urban School Leadership and the Schreiber Foundation to make sure that we are facilitating recruitment of high-need students, high-need staff members for students. We typically don't bring MOUs to the process, but there is a financial cost that we brought to the Finance Committee that I know Ms. McGinley will talk about as well. But we wanted to make sure that you knew the partnership that we were looking to create for this short term.
So yeah, this was, and anything, Dr. King? No, go ahead, Dr. King.
So besides the financial savings for us, on the flip side of this, what we want to utilize this opportunity is as a bridge while we actually build up our capacity in human resources and in recruiting as a district. This would offer a bridge for us to actually learn from them because they have a 100% success rate. This is all they do. There's a team of 6 people. Each one of them has a specific role. I won't go through all of them, but there's a recruiter, there's a PD person, there's a curriculum person. There's 3 other positions specific to this. And because it fell into our lap because of our partnership with the Schreibers, and they recommended us as well as another district to split this opportunity 50-50. The financial the piece is very obvious, but the other piece that isn't as obvious is really because it is for very hard to fill positions. All districts in the area and in Illinois are all fighting over the same candidates no matter what university you come from. But what makes this unique is, for example, Dr. Mendoza gave the example earlier in finance that Wheeling has a partnership with Illinois State University where they get the first dibs on the student teachers and then on hiring. But this is a little bit more unique than that because we also have a similar partnership with National Louis. But the uniqueness of this is to be able to have a chance at 7 or 8 very specific people for special education, versus at most universities of the partnerships that we have, we'll be lucky if we get one of those per year, let alone 7 or 8. We currently have openings that we haven't filled even this year for special education, which makes it a challenge, and it's not good for the climate and culture of the school or the staff, let alone best for students. And then the last piece of this that I would highlight would say, with this bridge and learning from them, it's a partnership where we've also asked them to expand their opportunities to consider ESL or LL, ESL, and or bilingual dual language. And they're excited about actually pursuing that opportunity as well. So hopefully over the course of the 2 years, that would be something that they could build up as well. That during this bridging time, we could learn from them and help them help us even fill that gap as well. So there's a lot of really, really good things coming out of this. And when you just look at the finances in general, the cost is minimal when it all washes out of the savings that we could actually gain from this.
So as I mentioned, this was at finance earlier today, and finance committee, of course, whenever we want to partner using outside resources, the question is, what have we done internally first before reaching outside of the district? And I know that's why you wanted to speak, Dr. King. Again, this would be used, to reach out so that we could, as Dr. King said, bridge the gap that we have internally. We know we've had some internal audit with our HR department that needs to be addressed first or initially. But as I mentioned, we also have a greater need of getting those teachers with the SPED endorsement or, bilingual, multilingual teachers, as we talked about one later in the agenda. Those needs obviously are a priority as well. And as Dr. Key mentioned, we still have some openings that we're unable to fill. So using this as a resource, and we'll learn from it. This is only a 2-year agreement. If you look in the finance committee meeting, it does have some additional documents regarding to cost and the benefit of really the cost and the benefits of the district. We look at it as we would have to hire additional people to build this right now, which we shouldn't do right now. We need to build a program. So that's why we figure this is a good bridge in that gap that we need currently. So finance committee does support this. But we ask that once we complete this 2 years, we kind of get that data back. What have we learned? What can we do? What can we bring in-house? And how will HR look differently possibly?
Additional questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much. All right, next up is the strategic plan monthly update. This is the first one for the new strategic plan. Very well spelled out inside the documentation. Does the board have any questions for the administration or the team?
Heather, do you want to make a couple comments?
Sure. You'll notice on the document, it looks very similar to what we did last year. And one thing that is different that we'd like to call out is there's a section under each goal that lists measures. So this is how we will measure our success in each of those areas this year. At the end of the year, we'll be coming back to the board and presenting on our progress in those areas. The board approved this new strategic plan last April, of course, and then we brought back strategies for our focus areas for this year in July. So what you see in the September section is progress in each of those areas. We have noted, just like last year, the status. I added one as pending launch because there are some things that have not yet been started this year, but you'll see those updates here in the next month or two in each of those areas. So any questions on the progress reports and or the measures that were listed?
I love the addition of the measures. Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing else on that one, we'll move to, it is yet that time of year again. Public Act 970256 and 970609 approvals.
As President Francisco said, this is the time of year where we're asked, or we're expected by Illinois State Code to provide the information on teacher and administrative salaries, which is 970256, as well as any IMRF salaries over 75,000, which is Act 970609. These are required reports, and they need to be published on our website as well as submitted to the State Board of Education by October 1st. We bring it to you today to have them approved and to do those actions next.
Any questions from the board? Perfect. Hearing none. Thank you very much for that. And we got one contract under 1,000 for Bellas Bouncies. Any questions for the administration in regards to that for the homecoming dance? All right, hearing none there, we will move forward. And as always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting, and the public commenter will be contacted to confirm identity. Once confirmed, the electronic public comment will be provided to all board members in written form, and as always, a link to the electronic public comment form is online. We did not have any electronic public comment for this meeting. Do we have any local public comment? Hearing none, we will now move to the superintendent's report and Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Board President Francisco. Below is a list of recently received donations. We are notifying the board in compliance with board policy. A thank you letter will be sent to the district, from the district to each donor. School supplies donated to Beach Elementary School by Walmart. $500 check, 50 boxed greeting card sets, 50 watches, 50 Fisher Vive sound earbud sets, Enchanted backpack to Village Elementary School, and $20,000 Schreiber Philanthropy for the Round Lake Area School District family trips. I'm not sure if you remember those. We have some of the best museums in the country and the world, and if my memory is correct, Ms. Crone, those fill up really fast. Yeah, so 2024 LUDA presenters. LUDA Large Unit District Association will host their fall conference October 9th through 11th. And Round Lake Area District 116 will be represented through a variety of presentations. Harmony in Action, navigating the total evolution of one school district through the transformation of its management union relationship and bargaining approach. I have the pleasure of presenting with the Earl President, Chrissy Gatlin. Our esteemed Elizabeth Damp will be presenting Reframing Professional Learning. Liz is, of course, a regular presenter at LUDA. And then I will be co-presenting District Communication Stuck in the Past, a discussion about our district's journey in innovative technology improvements. The board has invested significantly in our technology, and it's just a very high-level presentation on some of the creative things we've done. So, and for your convenience, we've also listed, I'm going to call some of these out, some of the homecoming events. The homecoming parade is Saturday, September 28th at 10 a.m. Line up at Beach by 9:30 a.m. I will be the board's driver. If we change that, am I doing the transportation center, I thought? Yeah. So remember how we did it last year? We met by the transportation building. We'll schedule more. We'll send just an update on that. But I won't go too fast. Got my bosses in the car. Oh boy. Homecoming games Friday, October 4th. Girls flag football at 5 p.m., varsity at 7. And then we have our homecoming dance Saturday, October 5th. We have a couple of new special activities scheduled for our community and alumni this year. We have an alumni tent. Details are in the superintendent's report specific to that. There will be light refreshments and snacks provided. And then the Round Lake High School community tours. There will be 3 tour sessions on Saturday, October 5th, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. Community members and alumni are invited to participate and are asked to register for their space prior to the event. That concludes our superintendent's report.
Any questions for Dr. Mendoza? The only one, definitely excited to hear about all the presenters at LUDA, and definitely would love to see if any of that could translate to presentations in
Yep.
Apply, IASB, the COSBA's, NSBA presentations, the whole 9 yards.
No problem. And I'm going to, I think you asked for this, I'm going to see if we can, usually at LUDA, there's not, it's just, there's usually not board members, but if you wanted, I think I'm going to try to give you some flexibility if you wanted to come and see a presentation. I don't think it's typically done, but I'll see if we can figure out a way to do that, and then you can come as you choose.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no additional questions on superintendent's report, we'll move to committee reports, and Annette, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, we had a finance committee meeting earlier this evening. As you heard Dr. Bailey present the 24-25 final budget, which will come before the board for approval on the 30th. We had a, it is tonight, I'm sorry. 23rd, yeah, sorry. My apologies, thank you. We had a request from RLAS for a Go Creative Programming Agreement. Of course, just making sure we have the insurance certificate on file. And then, of course, always checking to make sure we're doing those background checks. You heard in regards to the turf tank. That was on the agenda. And then the high school has a request as well for a speaker. It's Conscious Campus. It's the Free Hugs Project. They've done this multiple years. And again, the same request, making sure that we have the insurance on file along with background checks on those presenters. The high school, it's that time again for musical. So hopefully this doesn't spoil it for too many people. It's Alice by Heart. Again, making sure that we have that contract in place so they can present. And then as you know, as you heard from Dr. Mendoza, homecoming. So having the homecoming contract, again, just making sure we've taken those precautions from lessons learned, making sure the gym floor is protected and insurance is on file. You'll hear later in regards to HR specialist. It's really taking the current position and changing that into HR specialist to HR information specialist. As we talked about some of the needs within HR through the audit, this is just changing that position, making sure that this position, this title fits the need currently for HR. We'll talk about requests for bilingual teacher. That will be coming forward. And then we've spoken with this regarding before with the need for Miss Linnell Collins to come back to help us in the situation for the transition center. We had a request for a decrease of a 1.0 FTE director of facilities and an increase of 2.0 FTE maintenance 2 positions. So it's really taking that salary associated with that director of facilities, moving that to 2 maintenance 2 positions. If you look in the finance agenda, you'll see the history of fix-it tickets that we have within the district. We usually have a carryover that happens. And as I mentioned in our prior board meetings, I had the chance to go through the open houses. And there definitely is a need that is there. There's definitely need in the buildings. We know we have older and aging facilities, and we need to keep up on that maintenance. So we're hoping with the addition of these 2, of course, we can address all the fix-it tickets. Hopefully we don't have any carryover, and we'll see how those numbers transition or plan out for next year. These 2 positions, 1 person would be affixed to the high school specifically, and the other one would be like a floater within the district. With this request also comes the need for 2 vehicles so that these individuals can go out and get the nuts and bolts and tape and whatever that they need to fill those requests. So there is the additional cost of the 2 vehicles, which would be $125,000. Of course, we would source those vehicles either through the co-op or working through some of the dealerships that we have in the past. Then next we have the IASB administration procedures. We know we do Press Plus for the board. We want to do that for administration as well. Again, I think this is highly needed. The questions that really arose from this is, this would be a manual process that would be absorbed. Is do they have the bandwidth to do that? It's 3 times a year, correct? Yeah, 3 to 4 times a year. You know, when I hear manual process, and then what they'll have to do is making sure they can absorb that work. The next thing we had was the addition of 1 PE elementary wellness teacher. If you recall, we had 2 floating wellness PE teachers. Those are now no longer floating due to the need and class size of our PE. This 1 PE wellness teacher would be associated with Murphy and Murphy and Village Elementary. 2 days at Village, 3 days at Murphy. Again, usually how they try to address that need is taking other specials teachers to fill those gaps, but the gap really is too great that we really need to bring in another individual with that certification. And then you heard in regards to the Academy for Urban School Leadership. You know, I can answer more questions about that, but again, I think it's a partnership we should extend for these 2 years while HR builds out that process. And that is finance. Any questions?
Hearing none, thank you as always. And we will move to approval of open meeting minutes.
I need a motion to approve the September 9th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Devera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the September 11th, 2024 special board meeting expulsion minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Hearing no questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Devera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that will bring us to the first of new business, which is the approval of the delegate and alternate for the 2024 Joint Annual Conference. Doing it a little earlier than we normally do by bringing it up here in September, just because they've already opened up the registration and it's an online registration. Basically, from my notes, I think it's Miss Lee, Mr. Jewett, Mr. Devera, and Mr. Reddy McGinley are the ones who have been a delegate the furthest back, or AKA never. You have been? Oh, okay. Then I missed. Sorry. So you have been, but you still have not, correct?
I have.
Okay. Or maybe then I'm just losing my mind. I'm going to offer it up to the two of you first because you haven't.
A long time, but it's fine. You guys want to do it?
Well, I mean, it's been.
You want to do it, Mike?
Yeah, I was gonna say I enjoy doing it, but again, it was like 2017 when I did it. So Okay. Okay, and I know, and I'm pretty sure that I already talked with Peg a little bit, but she was last year's anyway, so. Yeah, so she's out. So I mean, if you're really excited about it, then I'm fine. Let you do it now. Yep. So then I will say that we will move to make you the delegate, and I'll just slide in as the alternate, just in case you get sick. Blah blah blah.
No Burger King.
No Burger King. No Burger King for you. All right. I don't think that needs anything. Yeah, that doesn't need anything formal. So, so it is. It shall be. All right. Next up, we will move to an approval of BOE travel expenses.
I need a motion to approve the Board of Education travel expenses reimbursement related to the 2024 COSBA Federal Advocacy Conference. Shouldn't that be 2025?
No, it was this year.
Oh, yeah, it was this year. I don't know what day or month it is.
So
moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any additional questions? You're thinking of the NSBA 2025. Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Abstain.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Francisco, can we go back to A? Is it okay if we do a roll call on that one? We have that listed.
Oh, absolutely. Did I miss having that on there? That is on me.
Right.
Okay.
So would we say Jennifer and then you, right?
Yeah, correct. It was Jennifer and there. You have a microphone. Please use it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I apologize. So we have a motion.
Yeah. Yeah, I need a motion to approve the delegate and alternate, delegate Mrs. Jennifer Klingler, alternate Mr. Michael Francisco, for the 2024 Joint Annual Conference Delegate Assembly, November 23rd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, second by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I think we're.
Correct. We should back to budget now.
I need a motion to approve the 2024-2025 final budget as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Hearing no additional questions on budget, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee? Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. DeVere gets so choked up about the budget.
I need a motion to approve the 2024-2025 school improvement plans.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the Round Lake High School 2024 homecoming DJ contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Motion carries. Wow, we're sliding down the path. Check.
I need a motion to approve the decrease in personal inventory 1.0 FTE HR specialist and increase in personal inventory of 1.0 FTE HR information specialist.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco? Miss Lee? Mrs. Klingler?
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve 1.0 FTE bilingual teacher at Ellis Elementary, state mandated to provide second language support.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the independent contract agreement with Miss Linnell Collins to manage out-of-district placements.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett.
Can I just
Please.
add something?
Absolutely,
that
please do.
I did mention when I gave my finance update. This contract we have before us is, is 25 half days or 50 not to exceed 50 half days. This position still is hard to fill. So if we still have not filled this might have to come back again for additional time.
Hearing no additional clarifications or questions, we will go to a roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next one's discussion.
Sorry, discussion.
Breaking the little routine there. Good evening. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention up for discussion that we discussed in the finance committee earlier today, and that is we would like to propose an additional FTE position for elementary PE classrooms. For now, right? When we can hopefully fill that and once approved. What I wanted to bring up, though, because of the unique nature of the timing, was the current solutions that we have been putting in place and kind of how it came to be. So as discussed earlier, we had two positions that were going to be traveling between two buildings. We had one PE teacher who was going to be traveling between Beach and Indian Hill, and another PE teacher that was going to be traveling between Murphy and Village Elementary. When the school year was getting close to start, we were looking at the numbers of the total number of students in classroom sections. With PE, students are required to have 3 days of physical education class during the week. So in that case, based on master schedules, often two classes are put together, creating a larger class size in the gymnasium for PE. We traditionally like to cover both of those sections with two PE teachers, and we have for the most part consistently over the previous few years. However, we occasionally have a section where we do not have available second PE teacher at that time, and so those positions are often filled with an art teacher, a music teacher, a PLTW teacher to cover kind of the sporadic openings throughout. However, with the change with the partner school and new rotations and new sectioning, we noticed a high need happening at all four of those elementary schools. Beach and Indian Hill did not have openings within their other classroom teachers to fulfill that second staffing position. So we made the decision before the school year started to move those traveling PE teachers full-time to Beach and Indian Hill to ensure that we had all of those sections covered with two staff members at all time. So they do have two PE teachers. Murphy and Village, we were able to fill those openings throughout the day with those teachers, music teacher, art teacher, PLTW, and so forth, just of how the schedule worked out. However, that number is at about 30 sections that are being filled between the two buildings. So that's a significant ask for those teachers to also be teaching PE throughout the day. And also it just isn't providing the same educational experience we want for our students in PE, and have a certified PE teacher to be able to instruct and, provide a better experience for those students. So although they are currently covered, I looked at the master schedule, and if we are able to get this position approved and post and hire somebody, we will be able to tweak the schedule a little bit where students, all of those high class numbers will fall on 2 days at Village. So the PE teacher would spend 2 full days at Village, ensuring that those higher class sizes are met, and then 3 full days at Murphy Elementary. So we'll cover all of those needs within there, and our teachers who have been covering PE will go back to their regular duties as their building schedule allows within that. But we wanted to bring it to discussion because of the timing of the nature of the ask and the request. And also, if we would be able to grant permission to post an anticipated posting for the position. And then we'll come back to the board for the October board meeting to seek approval for the position. But I would be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any challenges to going ahead and posting the provisional position? Seeing none.
The only thing I want to add is, Ms. Fontana was speaking, the other question that comes out of finance when we post these positions, because we see an immediate need, is will we still need this position long-term as we look into next year and the years prior? And you did speak to that. We would still need this position.
Yes, I do foresee that continuing to be needed just by the number of students and number of open spots in a gymnasium.
All right, so then we will expect to see this back for approval on the October 7th meeting and look forward to it. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll move to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report for $1,172,594.92. The previous motions report for $2,860,725.48. The August 2024 Treasurers Report, the August 2024 P-Card Report, and the September 23rd, 2024 Employment Report.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions on the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that will bring us back to old business and Mr. Karolzak, it looks like, with the Grit Leadership Contract.
So I believe this was actually supposed to come to you, back to you at the first September meeting, but did not. So, quick refresher in case you don't remember the finance update from 2 meetings ago regarding it. Grit Leadership specializes in mid-season student check-ins and coach evaluation software that helps athletic directors and coaches become better leaders. We'll use their tools to hold effective one-on-one meetings, get honest feedback from athletes, share progress with coaches and athletes, and start building more resilient student athletes and more reflective coaches. Does anyone have any questions?
So I'll speak to, this was on our finance, August 19th, and I have all my notes here. So we reviewed, because, again, whenever it's data interaction with students, making sure it goes through the SAPA compliance, but this is all gonna be web-based. Is that correct? This is making sure my notes are still right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. And as you heard Mr. Karolzak speak, it's data-driven, student surveys. It could be used to kind of, it's in the title, the Grit Leadership, for development with our students and our coaches. It is $1,400 a year. It is coming out of Mr. Kalsick's athletic budget. And currently Libertyville High School, correct, is using it.
That is correct.
So they have reached out to that as well. So I know finance is in support of it, and we're anxious to see what kind of results will be. Again, refreshing back from August, you'll start sharing some of that survey data as it becomes available.
Yeah, that is correct. Quarterly reports to the board that will be included.
Great.
Does this have the possibility of rolling down to the middle school level, considering that we do it as a holistic district athletic program, to be able to potentially roll that down to the coaches at the middle school levels?
We can definitely do it. I don't know if they would want to charge us more money for that or not. I'd have to reach out to the rep.
I'm just curious. I mean, because it definitely sounds like a great thing, and if we're a unified district, then we've got coaches that are coaching before they get to the high school. So
I think, and again, you can refresh my memory, we talked about how do we, kind of with everything as a unit district, how do we expand it to the others? I think we're going to see how it works with the high school, especially the student surveys. Right. How's really the interaction? Are we going to get good data from it? But kind of with everything.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember those conversations.
No, that is correct. It's a 3-year deal. But with an opt-out clause at the end of each year, should we feel the need to exercise that. But yeah, I'm viewing it as an opportunity to pilot it with the high school, and if we like the results, that's definitely something that we can explore, and I think is a good suggestion.
All right. Any additional questions? Hearing none.
Right. I need a motion to approve the 3-year contract with Grit Leadership at $1,400 per year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Klingler. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that will bring us to positive occurrences.
Refresh your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, you were talking to me.
No, it's on your agenda.
Okay, sorry. Yes, there is not. If you refresh your screen, it will disappear. Okay, so again, yay, I was right. Positive occurrences. I will start with positive occurrences. Reason I missed most of finance was I was over at Sports Center with the cross country senior night that we had for our home meet, and it was absolutely awesome being able to enjoy the last home meet for those, what was it, remind me, 12 seniors? 14. I was close. But just a great overall, and then of course just across the board with all the different activities. We're in the busy season again. Band is showing off at all kinds of different contests. Same thing with guard, volleyball, football, baseball. Well, not baseball, but because. Yeah, but exactly. It's just everybody is up and running, and it's really exciting to see.
Okay, I have one because this Saturday, we have the parade, but the band is also going to have a competition at Mount Prospect. And I don't know, or at Prospect. And I don't know if I mentioned the last competition they came in second. Did I mention that? I did, okay. I was really excited about it. So,
Yep, parade day is always an excitingly long day for band parents.
It's a long day. It's good though.
Anyone else? I was not trying to hog all of it. I was just. All right, next up then, we will move to future agenda items. Anyone have any future agenda items they would like to put forward to the administration? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1, real estate matters 5 ILCS 120/2C5, security matters 5 ILCS 120/2C8, and closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries, and that will take us to closed session. We will come back out of closed session and reconvene in open session for action. So for those online and those here local, if you want to wait until after closed session, there will be a brief open session again for action resulting from. Everyone have a great evening, and we'll see you in a little while.
Need a motion to approve the authorization of the acquisition of PIN 0617416028, which is 1502 Grove Drive, Round Lake Beach.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no questions, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of September 9th, 2024 of the regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the September 11th, 2024 special board meeting expulsion hearing meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Klingler, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that will bring us to our adjournment. We are adjourned at 9:41 p.m. Thank you all. And our next meeting is October the 7th.